Welcome to Business Digest Radio, Southern Colorado's source for business, policy, economics, workforce, and innovation. Brought to you by Colorado Media Group. Here's your host, Dirk Hobbs.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Business Digest Radio. I am your host, Dirk Hobbs. Glad you're with us today here in about mid-May. And we've got a lot going on here in Southern Colorado. Two very special guests in the studio with me. We're going to get into a conversation about your relationship with your bank and what that should look like. Questions you should be asking them and services they should be providing you. And so we're going to get under the hood with a group here in town called Upward Treasury Partners, an exciting new group that's helping banks and their customers learn how to better do business with one another. So stick around for that. But before we get started, I want to just talk about something that happened last week here in Southern Colorado. Radin was a guest here on the program. They're a data center venture capital group that's placing these very modernized data centers throughout the United States. And we had a great conversation with one of the principals, Jason Green, here. And he explained kind of what a data center is, how it functions, and what its role is, as well as the technological components that are of concern for a great many people, particularly here in Southern Colorado, where water is one of the main concerns that we have from a natural resource perspective. So he unpacked what is called a closed system or a closed loop system, and some people call it an infinite loop system. And these technologies allow for those organizations to come in and scoop up a bunch of water initially and then recycle and reuse that water for close to a year before they have to go back to the well. The site they are looking to procure was one that is granted by where they are in the industry or geographically as one that can utilize close to 1 million gallons of water a day. But as Jason unpacked for us, they're only going to need about 200,000 gallons initially, and then their utilization rate will drop substantially to what a normal business would utilize as far as water is concerned. So anyway, they went on to have several conversations around the community, only to be disrupted by a group that kind of planted themselves from all over the country. Members from this group planted themselves in the open town hall meeting, and it was very counterproductive, I must say. And the fact is, we're trying to educate and inform people around the region about what data centers are. So I had an interesting conversation with my in-laws, interestingly enough, about this at a very summary level. And they said, well, you know, we don't want data centers either because of what they are. And I said, well, what do you think they are? And what they unpacked for us was very revealing because they perceived them to be big daddy centers, things that are looking and using your personal information and data. The fact is, these are like giant banks of computers. That's all they are. And you can't regulate individual business behavior that's going through, say, you're doing business with a CPA firm or you're doing business with a manufacturer. If that manufacturer has not taken the proper steps in protecting your information, that's one thing. But the data center has nothing to do with that. All they're doing is moving that information around as a service. We're a very digitally reliant and focused culture today. And subsequently, we use the internet daily, multiple times daily. We stream music and movies and all kinds of things. That's what a data center does, in summary, is facilitate that digital landscape and that digital life that we've become so accustomed to. So no question, there are nefarious players out there, and we need to be prudent and ask proper questions. But I just wanted to give a little bit of background. I put a post on LinkedIn. You can read it. It's SoCo Digest on LinkedIn. it basically explains what a data center is and what it is not. And then listen to the interview with Jason Green at Radon and get a better understanding of that as well. So little backgrounder there, but I wanted to kind of fresh start that conversation here so that we can continually develop our economic ecosystem here in Southern Colorado and welcome new businesses into the community. They're going to park about $3 billion worth of computers here, and that economic base and other infusions that will be happening as a result of these data centers, there's a lot of upside to it. The concerns are valid, some of them, but some of them are just red herrings. And I would encourage you to do your homework and really fish that out. Next thing I want to do is talk about Air Force graduation. We've got Vice President J.D. Vance is coming in as a commencement speaker, and we're honored to have him in the community, as well as the new superintendent will be starting in the fall. His name is Major General Paul D. Moga, and he is a class graduate of 95 at the Air Force Academy. Very exciting to have him here. Welcome, sir, to your new post at the Air Force Academy. AI agents. You want to build an AI agent for your business, and on the operations side, the Better Business Bureau has a new program coming out next week, May 27th. I encourage you to go to the BBB of Southern Colorado and check that out. These are free classes, ladies and gentlemen. Southern Colorado is becoming a nationally recognized AI hub, and it's really exciting to see what's happening with all things AI in the region. All right, well, let's get to work here. We've got two special guests in the studio with me. Jared Schmidt, who is a partner of Upward Treasury Partners, and of course, Becky Limoge, CTP, Certified Treasury Professional. She is the founder of this particular group. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. And we're going to get, what I like to do is orient our listeners to who we're talking to, a little bit of background on you. And then in the second quarter, we'll come back and we'll do a deeper dive into some of the conversations you want to have. So ladies first, we'll start with Becky. A little bit of background.
Yeah, so a little background on me. I have been in the banking industry for the last 25 years. Please don't do the math on that. And throughout that time, I've really had the privilege of sitting inside a variety of organizations, from a couple of the largest banks on the planet, all the way to some smaller community banks. I've worked with clients ranging from very small startups all the way up to $80, $90 billion enterprises. And so I've seen a number of things through that time. But what has really stood out to me is a lot of the challenges are the same, regardless of the size of the banking institution or the size of the company. And so that's led us to what we're doing today.
Very good. Jared, how did you get involved in this?
Oh, gosh. So I've been in banking not 25 years.
Okay.
Close to about 20 years.
Okay.
And started off on the retail side of things. My goal was I was going to take over retail. I was going to make it right, change it around, make it hugely profitable, et cetera, et cetera. I got all the way up to the upper management side of on the retail. And let's see, I had about 9 branches that oversaw about 65 employees, and realized that's not really a path that I want to go down. So I made a shift into the treasury side of things. So
very good.
That's where I kind of dove into this world. I covered treasury for about 5-6 years. And then recently, after that, I moved over to the credit lending side of things. I was there for a couple of years. All this was with a larger bank. And then just recently, I was a market president for a small community bank here in town.
Very good.
And that's where I met Becky, was when I started that position. And her and I got to know each other quite well and realize our paths and our vision and how we see banks and businesses working together. Our visions really align perfectly. So that's kind of where we got it.
Well, that's great stuff. All right. So give us an executive summary, an elevator pitch, if you will, on Upward. And this is your brainchild. You wanted to make things better for small businesses, in particular, to do business better with their bank.
Exactly.
Okay. Unpack that a little bit.
So what I've seen based on the organizations that I've sat in, the clients that I've worked with, is for a company to really thrive and be supported with their growth, with managing risk, with their financial operations, they need to be having the right conversations with the right partner. And so our role in that is we sit at the intersection between businesses and banks. We get to sit on both sides of the table at times. And within businesses, we can help guide them to understand what's working really well. Inside their business, they may have a sense of what's going well. They may be experiencing some friction, but they're not totally sure where that's coming from. And so we can help those businesses understand some challenges that we can help them work around, how to smooth out cash flow issues, understand their risk, and understand really how their bank plays into that conversation, because it takes weaving all of those things together to to solve most of the challenges that those businesses are facing. And then on the bank side, we work to help banks better understand some of the operational challenges that the businesses are facing and help the banks be better equipped to sit down at that table, ask the right questions, guide the conversation to where the bank becomes more than just a place where you can deposit balances and maybe get a loan, but they're truly a sophisticated operating partner in how that business runs. So we sit in the middle.
I love the way you just phrased that. We're a very sophisticated operating partner. I would venture to say that 90% of businesses, if not more, would say that's not how I view my bank. It's very, no pun intended, very transactional. And I put money in, I get money out, and that's kind of the end of the relationship. There's a lot more to it.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we bonded a little bit, getting to know one another, is just this sense of almost rebranding financial operations inside of a business and rebranding the perception of a bank relationship, because for a lot of companies, it feels very administrative. You get your statement, maybe you look at it, maybe you reconcile to it, you run your transactions, you check your balances, make your loan payment, whatever the case may be. Those are all administrative functions. But when you know how to have the right conversation with the right banking partner, they really can transform how you're operating inside your company and managing risk, and provide a lot of value that a lot of people just don't fully realize.
Absolutely. Well, when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a deep dive, about a 40-minute clinic on how to better do business with your bank, and banks, how to do better business with your customers. Back in a moment.
Leonard Skinnard. Live. Saturday, September 19th, Ford Amphitheater. With special guest 38 Special. On sale Friday, 10 a.m. at leonardskinnard.com. Leonard Skinnard, live. Produced by AEG Presents.
Picnic Basket Catering Collective. Call or find us online.
Pain doesn't just announce itself, it changes how you move. And when movement changes, everything else follows. That's when experience and coordination matters most. Dr. Craig Yeager, orthopedic sports medicine surgeon here at Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, board-certified, fellowship-trained specialists treat the full orthopedic picture from head to toe. With our walk-in express care, advanced MRI and CT imaging, and physical therapy at 2 full-service locations, your care stays connected. Schedule today. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, because movement isn't optional, it's personal.
All right, welcome back to the second quarter of Business Digest Radio. I'm your host, Dirk Hobbs. Quick shout out to some of our sponsors, Venue, the operators of the Ford Amphitheater, as well as our friends at the Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, and several others, which you'll find in between commercial breaks here. We want to thank those folks for stepping up and helping us get information and expertise out to the Southern Colorado region on a regular basis. Thank you very much. All right, we're hanging out with Becky Limoge. She is a certified Treasury Professional, and Jared Schmidt, who is a partner at Upward Treasury Partners. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're a small business owner, operator, financial person in that organization, or you're in a large enterprise, doesn't matter, from small business and startup all the way out to enterprise and everything in between. Financial management is one of those things you just cannot get around. Understanding how cash flow works, fraud protections that are necessary, protecting your clients, protecting your data, protecting your employees. There's a ton that goes into this. And most of us who are small business owners and operators tend to be experts in our category. That's what we know. That's what we do. And this other administrative task that we have is often a burden and sometimes left to third-party people to kind of manage, whether it's a bookkeeper or a CPA firm, and all that's great. But knowing what questions to ask, knowing what to look at on your reports, and what you can expect to have in a relationship with your bank, I think is a key part of this. On the banking side, are you doing everything you can to set up your business partners, your clients, for success? And that's what we're going to talk about for about the next 40 minutes. So grab a pen and paper, take some notes, and then I want to drive you to the website, upwardtreasury.com, upwardtreasury.com. All right, welcome back, gang.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. All right, so let's start with an executive summary of what's happening in business today, all the different things that are coming at owners right now.
Sure, absolutely. In the conversations that we have with organizations across size, across industry, there's a lot of pressure that's been building over a number of years. And I think in some part that's due to the complexity that's been piling up as technology has grown. There's many companies that have maybe piecemealed in different tools, different payment channels, things that they go out and they think they need to help their business run. And often these are set up in a way that works for a time, works for a season, and then you start to outgrow that. And knowing when that point may be can feel a little fuzzy. And so they feel that friction, they feel that operational strain. Maybe they feel like they need to bring on another tool with AI doing more and more, or they need another payment channel for their clients, whatever the case may be. This starts to create a really complex environment. And so we're here to bring some structure and steadiness to that conversation so that complexity in today's business environments doesn't turn into chaos.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine, Jared, that like most things, people's financial picture is something that they like to keep very close to the vest. And it's not something, because they may be doing, like you said, they may be doing things in an unorthodox manner, right? Yeah. So they're not tracking with how they think their bankers should operate necessarily. So there may be an embarrassment factor there. How do you get through that initially?
I think that's completely understandable. Right. What we've noticed over the years is, especially business owners that have been in business for 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, they have this back end side of the cash flow already set in place. The process has been the same for the long extended time. They have X amount of FTE or individuals, employees work in this process, and they think, hey, this is okay. It's working. I want to do what I'm good at, which is getting out there, finding new clients, driving business, and bringing revenue into the bank. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for a business owner sometimes to sit down and be open to the idea of saying, hey, what technology has changed on the back end? How can I help improve this process a little bit? Maybe I have 10 FTEs working this process when really I can get away with 4 or 5 FTEs working this process.
Got it.
And we're saying, hey, don't get rid of those FTEs. Don't get rid of those employees. If they're great employees, just utilize those employees into other aspects of the business to help drive your business. So we found that when you're having these types of conversations with the business owners that have been doing this type of business for a long extended time, they don't really understand and know what the changes are on the background. And it does take a little bit of, you got to sit down, you got to be open to the idea of saying, okay, I'm really good at what I do. I've been in business for a long time. I'm fantastic at what I do. My doors are still open. I'm feeding my employees, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also the other side of it saying, what efficiencies can I help improve on the back end to make this run a little bit easier and a little bit better?
So how does an engagement work with you all? A client sees this podcast, or they see the website, or they know they're kind of sideways and they're not, in fact, I had conversations with you, Becky, about that mid-month cash flow pinch.
Yes.
Right? I've got a ton of receivables on the other side of when my payables are due.
Right.
Okay. So treasury management is a real thing. And it really didn't come into focus with me until I spoke with you about that. And that was very cathartic and therapeutic, frankly, because it gave me some hope that I can get back control of my business. So unpack that a little bit and how an engagement would look.
Sure. So there's a couple different lanes that we work in. Oftentimes they overlap. And so there are some companies who we have conversations with. We spend a great deal of time talking about risk and fraud in the business environment. Right. So sometimes we have companies come to us that they really just want to understand what their picture of financial risk looks like, where they have exposure in internal controls and the way they're processing financial transactions. That's a lane. You hit on a great spot with, just looking at cash flow. Cash flow, treasury management, that is a really powerful lever inside a business, because the experience that you have with that mid-month cash crunch where the timing just is not flowing the way it should, that's not a balance sheet problem. That's not a P&L problem. That is solely a timing problem with the levers you have control over to a large extent, for how to bring funds in the door and then how and when you pay those funds out. And there's a number of aspects of that conversation of how do you incentivize what helps your business run most efficiently and effectively. And then we also work with businesses who have a sense that they might not be with the right banking partner for what their needs have evolved to. And so we can sit with companies and run a full end-to-end process to go through a request for proposal, RFP process, taking into account how their business actually operates, where they're looking to go, and finding a partner who really aligns with those goals and can support them over a long period of time.
Yeah, I think the big thing is if you're a business owner and you're sitting down and you're at some time in the month, there's, like you said, there's a pinch in that cash flow. Like Becky said, there's nothing wrong with your P&L. There's just some efficiencies that, hey, let's talk about how we can improve that. Can we slow down your payables? Can we speed up your receivables? How can we help improve that process? And that's really what we really enjoy doing, is just sitting down and talking to individuals and say, how can we help better you? Right? What do you want out of your bank? What's important to you out of your bank? Where do you want to be in 5, 10 years? How can we help you get there? Mm-hmm. And that's where the partnership with us come into play. Is we sit down, we'll analyze everything under the sun from beginning to end, where you want to go, and then we help make those introductions, because we know that, gosh, when you're a business owner and you're looking at changing banks, that is a lot of work. And we know that. We've been in the industry for a long, long time. And we have helped a lot of clients with that transition. It is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So the goal is to help analyze what you're doing now, where you want to go. Let's create those efficiencies now, and let's put you into a partnership with the right bank that understands your vision. So it's a long-term growth for both of you, and you both can grow together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you help a business identify a banking resource or relationship that is more suited to them, because most people, they go to their mom or dad's bank when they open a business, and it could be a huge institutional bank that has, all the capabilities in the world, but the individual business owner may think, gosh, I'm so small. I don't have any right to be asking for things like treasury management and things like that.
Silly.
That's a misnomer, right?
100%.
That's a misunderstanding about
100%.
this.
It doesn't matter if you're in business for a month or 20 plus years, you want to be able to have those types of conversations and ask those questions to your bank. And the banks really should be ready to answer those questions and say, okay, how can we help you get there?
Would you go so far as to suggest that some businesses fail as a result of just having the wrong understanding about how to work with a bank?
Absolutely. And I think that's for a couple reasons. I think that there are businesses that struggle and may ultimately fail because of cash flow issues, that they, just hit the end of the runway when it's not a top line revenue problem. And I think this is why we both get so passionate about the work that we're doing is, you don't inherently know, just as a human individual, all these tools available and levers available to make those adjustments inside your business. You don't go out to the Secretary of State to file your business, and then all of a sudden you just know all of these things
So
you should
true.
be thinking about and asking. And so, yes, businesses often run into those cash flow issues that they don't know how to get out of. And then secondary to that, if you're not having the right conversations on risk in your business, unfortunately, fraud is rampant. It has become much more sophisticated than it used to be. And the reality is that many of these fraud losses that we've seen over our careers can shutter a small business.
Oof.
And so that has really just lit a fire in my belly over the last number of years to make sure that we can be that advocate for businesses. We can be that advocate for you, so you know where the risk lives and what options you have available to navigate these challenges.
I got to tell you, folks, I'm glad they're passionate about it, because as a media guy or somebody who builds widgets or a manufacturer of tennis shoes or space equipment, you may not want to focus on this, but it's a key part of your business. And I love the statistic basically that says, if you have the right relationship with your bank, then it's not a top line problem. You could just be having the wrong relationship with your bank. And it's a worthwhile exercise to go through and analyze what your business does, how it operates, how your payables and receivables work, and then pivot into an institution that might be able to help you, or have the conversation with your existing bank and let them have a chance at helping you get through that. Anyway, we're back with Upward Treasury here in just a moment. Stick around. If you want to subscribe to the Business Digest, go to socodigest.com/subscribe.
Leonard Skinnard. Live. Saturday, September 19th, Ford Amphitheater. With special guest 38 Special. On sale Friday, 10 a.m. at leonardskinnard.com. Leonard Skinnard. Live. Produced by AEG Presents.
Picnic Basket Catering Collective. Call or find us online.
Pain doesn't just announce itself, it changes how you move. And when movement changes, everything else follows. That's when experience and coordination matters most. Dr. Craig Yeager, orthopedic sports medicine surgeon here at Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group. Board-certified, fellowship-trained specialists treat the full orthopedic picture from head to toe. With our walk-in express care, advanced MRI and CT imaging, and physical therapy at 2 full-service locations, your care stays connected. Schedule today. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, because movement isn't optional, it's personal.
All right, we're third quarter here, Business Digest Radio. I am your host, Dirk Hobbs. Welcome back. I'm hanging out with Jared Schmidt and Becky Limoge, both from Upward Treasury Partners here in Southern Colorado. UpwardTreasury.com is the website. Check it out while we're having this conversation. And we've been doing a deep dive on the relationship businesses should expect to have with their bank. And now we're going to also talk about how banks should maybe reach in a little bit more with their business partners and their clients and say, hey, let's have you considered this? Or based on your business model, you might want to consider some of the tools that we have here at the bank. Not everything is about fees for the bank, folks. Some of it's just about services and the things you need to do to mitigate cash crunches and cash flow issues and all those different things that we all face as small business owners. So take a listen to these two folks. They know what they're talking about. They've been inside the banking industry for a great many years. And it's very, very exciting to have you here, guys, because I appreciate this level of communication from banking experts, people that have seen all kinds of deals come through your hands, right? And the insecurity, that's across the desk from you. Okay, that person who's starting a business or they're in business and they're not quite sure of what they're doing, or maybe they've outpaced themselves in growth, right? They grew too quick. Yep. And all of a sudden they have cash flow issues and FTEs to consider. But also is this fraud factor. And I want to give you guys some space to talk about this because we hear the word, we think, well, that'll never happen to me. I'm too small. Very dangerous posture, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a matter of if.
It's when.
Exactly.
And I've heard that.
Yeah.
And so having those tools in place and actually having a working understanding of how fraud works, okay, and what it can do to your business. Let's just start with an executive summary of what is fraud?
Sure, absolutely. Well, being in the industry for as long as we have, we've seen some things and it's not always pretty. Yeah. And a lot of times when people think about fraud, they think of altering a check. They think of someone compromising your login credentials, and those things do happen. Sure. Those risks are very, very real. In fact, a number of years ago, there was a fraud ring exposed inside the USPS. Unfortunately, there were some internal employees.
That's right. I remember this.
Yes. Yeah. They were intercepting checks that were in circulation. We still send a lot of checks in the U.S. And it was estimated they had compromised about $24 million. Oh, okay. So it was a massive enterprise, and they were doing a couple of things. And so they were washing the checks. They were altering the checks themselves. They were selling the data on the dark web. And so then another bad actor has access to the routing number and the bank account number that is on every check. Truly, I think of every check as an invitation for fraud. And so that next bad actor can go out, they can originate ACH transactions, electronic transactions with that account information. And then they were creating entirely new checks from this data. And so that is a significant piece of risk that a lot of us have gotten really comfortable with. Well, it's just a check. You send it in the mail. It's secure. It's going to get where it's going. It's fine. It's fine until it isn't. And the volume that this is happening, we really can't ignore that risk factor. The other piece that I've seen come up more and more, and it truly is hard to catch if you don't have someone working alongside you, helping you understand what this looks like, is the extent that we see vendor payments compromised. This could be a bad actor hacking into your vendor's system and sending an email from their true system, or it could be a lookalike email. I've seen both happen. And one of the most extreme cases I've seen, there is an email come in from a vendor to this company saying, we've changed our banking information. Please update the next payment to da-da-da-da-da. Here's the new bank account. And this was a former client of mine. I know the person very well. She was very talented. She knew the things to do, but it was late in the day on a Friday. And the bad actors know this. They prey upon, who we are as people. And so it caught this person in a rush. And there was a wire sent out the door for $925,000 at the end of the day on a Friday. And this particular company didn't recover any of it. It was long gone by the time the next week came around. And so, you think, oh, well, I only send $100 checks, or we just have these few vendor payments. You really have to understand the angles that these bad actors are coming in. And now AI has done a couple of things. It's made fraud more sophisticated, easier to believe, and it's increased the volume of fraud attempts. And so I really encourage every business and every banker to lean into these conversations, because the more we shine a light on what's happening and what you can do inside your business from a process and control standpoint, as well as different pieces of protection you can add to your account structure, the more we can minimize a massive loss like that.
So
I think the word is proactive.
Yes,
absolutely.
If you're a bank or a business, be proactive with it. If you've never even had any type of conversation with a bank, you need to have it now.
Yeah.
Be proactive about it, because these fraud individuals, they're just getting smarter.
Yeah.
Well,
And AI is making it a heck of a lot easier for them to do it.
and they're going to get wealthy doing it.
Yeah.
So like your credit card, I get a call if my credit card company sees something unorthodox happening. They can stop the charge, or they can classify it into a fraud realm. Okay. Do their due diligence and recognize that wasn't us making that purchase. Do banks have these tools available to them or something similar?
They do. And so banks are typically monitoring transaction activity on business accounts as well. And so you may get a call from your banker. On the banking side, for companies that are writing checks, would really encourage that business to talk to their bank about adding positive pay. And what this particular tool does, I personally think everyone writing any volume of checks should be using it, is it takes your check issue data, the check number, the date, who you've written the check to, and the amount, and you pass that data securely to the bank. And so as those checks are clearing, the bank is matching that data based on what's coming in on that check to make sure that, there hasn't been a bad actor make the check out to themselves or alter the amount from $50 to $50,000. It gives you a level of protection and the ability to take a look at that check and say, oh, yes, this is legitimate. We wrote the check, forgot to send the information to the bank. Go ahead and pay that. Or this is actually fraud. You flag that, they return the check before you've had any kind of loss.
Interesting. Okay.
I think banks do the best they can
Yep.
to monitor, right? They really do the best they can. Depending on the size of the bank, you got to realize they have a couple hundred to a couple thousand clients that they're doing the best they can to monitor. But if you don't have any kind of fraud service set up, if it's positive pay or whatever else it is, because there's a lot of others out there, the banks are doing the best they can.
Sure.
If there's no service that's attached to it, they're more than likely going to miss, because they have a lot of clients, they have a lot of volume that they're just pushing transactions through.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. By this time, some folks may be wondering how to contact you and how to set up an engagement where you come and do an analysis.
Would you like to give your cell phone number?
Yes, please. Call or text anytime.
9 a day.
Well, sir,
He's got you.
the URL is upwardtreasury.com. You behave yourself. But what is the engagement going to look like? Is it just an ongoing series, or is there a beginning, middle, and end? How does that work?
Yep, there's very much a beginning, middle, and end to the work that we do, because we want to make sure this is finite and that our clients are seeing true benefit to the work that we're doing. And so when we come in, whether it's examining risk exposure and internal controls, or whether it's a company that's saying, hey, we may have outgrown our banking relationship, or, we need more insight into this category from our bank, and they want to go out to RFP for that process. The most important part of our work is we come in to really understand what this business is going through. What is their operating reality? What are the challenges they're up against based on the industry, based on factors that are unique to them? And so we really sit with them and take a deep dive into how things are going today, and help them see that oftentimes you don't have to be limited by how things are going in that moment. But here's where we can go together. And what makes us a little bit different in what we're doing is we're not limited to making changes just based on available banking features. That's not where we stop and end. We truly dive into the internal processes and the controls with a third-party perspective, solely with the benefit of that business in mind, to take a much deeper look than what you'll usually find.
And then when do you pivot to start focusing on asking the bank to do certain things for that client.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's going to come after we've had a real chance to get to know our client, what they're looking for, and what this kind of future state is like, where they want to be at the end of this project. And so once we have a handle on that, I'd like to think and say that, for Jared and I, we're not necessarily pro any certain bank. We're not pro everyone should be banking with big banks or everyone should be banking with small banks, particularly throughout Southern Colorado. There's a really interesting mix of players that all deserve a seat at the table, and having the exposure to the industry and these markets that we have, we can really help guide to some options of who might be the best bank that's suited for those specific needs.
As a former market president of a bank, I'd love your perspective real quick on when you saw a client come to you asking you for certain mechanisms to help them better streamline their business. I mean, that should have given you as a banker more confidence that business is actually being, as you said earlier, proactive.
No, I think it's great. I mean, if as we've been saying this whole time, if you have never had this type of conversation with a bank, go have the conversation with the bank. I thought of it from a different side, right? If the client came to me and saying, hey, I need to have this type of conversation as a market president of a bank who had a number of employees, that was their job to be proactive, to have that conversation with the client ahead of time. So I looked at it saying, okay, this was a bank failure at that point. We should have had this conversation well before the client ever green light went off in their head and saying, hey, I think I should have this conversation. Because going back to what I said initially, business owners are fantastic at doing what they're doing, right? Their doors are open. The food's still on the table for their employees.
Yep.
They're driving business. That's what they're really, really good at. They don't know what's going on the back end. But if they get to the point of saying, hey, I need to know what's going on in the back end or what changes are going on, and they're proactively going to the bank, kudos to them. Shame on the bank for not approaching them sooner, saying, hey, let's have this conversation now.
Very good. Well, when we come back, we're running a little short on time because there's so much to talk about here. So I'm going to ask you guys to come back at some point and unpack some additional stuff. But they will go through a lot of different components in your business. If you're a business owner, operator, entrepreneur, fraud, operational overload, banking relationships, staffing, risk, growth, AI. All of that is part of the evaluation process of how you can optimize efficiencies and workflow in your business, as well as go to sleep at night knowing you don't have cash crunches every 6 weeks. Okay, that's a huge thing for small business owners. I got that t-shirt, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure a lot of you do as well. So do everything in your power to be proactive and start driving your business rather than it driving you. It's not just a cliche, it's actually a fact. Your business can get ahead of you. And if you don't want that, if you want to feel like you've got some control, this is a great step to take. When we come back, I'm going to talk to the banks in the community, in the region, big and small. And we're going to talk about how you can be more proactive in your role as a banking institution to help your businesses thrive.
Leonard Skinnard. Live. Saturday, September 19th, Ford Amphitheater. With special guest 38 Special. On sale Friday, 10 a.m. at leonardskinnard.com. Leonard Skinnard. Live. Produced by AEG Presents.
The Picnic Basket Catering Collective. Call or find us online.
Pain doesn't just announce itself, it changes how you move. And when movement changes, everything else follows. That's when experience and coordination matters most. Dr. Craig Yeager, orthopedic sports medicine surgeon here at Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group. Board-certified, fellowship-trained specialists treat the full orthopedic picture from head to toe. With our walk-in express care, advanced MRI and CT imaging, and physical therapy at 2 full-service locations, your care stays connected. Schedule today. Colorado Springs Orthopedic Group, because movement isn't optional, it's personal.
All right, we're back here, fourth quarter, Business Digest Radio on a Friday afternoon. Glad you're with us. Busy work week here in Southern Colorado. Hopefully you've had one, and hopefully you're going soon home to enjoy the weekend here and what should be a nice little warm-up for the weekend. So if you're new to the Business Digest, I welcome you to subscribe at Business Digest. Well, actually, that's not the URL. It's socodigest.com and /subscribe. And you will be privy to all of the things that are going on in our region, particularly with our strong sectors in aerospace and defense, cybersecurity, quantum, advanced manufacturing, and now data centers, as well as the small businesses out there that are looking to continue being the support and the backbone of any given economy. We appreciate all of you, and we want to make sure that you have a voice here in Southern Colorado. There's a lot of legislation on the board right now that you guys need to be paying attention to as business owners. The General Assembly has a couple of bills that they're noodling around right now that would add about $547 million to the tax burden here in Colorado. Folks, we got to pivot. As a business-friendly state that we once were, we need to return to that and make sure that our businesses continue to thrive without this overwhelming tax burden and administrative burden that's being placed on them. So look at the General Assembly, see what they're talking about, read those bills carefully, and then if you don't like what you see, your voice matters more than you think. I didn't think this either. I thought, I'm just one voice in the wilderness. Yes, but if there's 1,000 voices in the wilderness, that becomes something they have to listen to and participate with to help form legislation that is more advantageous for business here in Colorado. In Southern Colorado, we are definitely open for business. Part of that business is doing your banking with an institution, large or small, community bank or major banking institution. And I want to talk to the bankers in the room for a minute, because it used to be that your job was really to go out and formulate relationships, and that was the extent of it. Relationship banking, very important. And that season has come, and it's not gone, but it's now being added to another list of deliverables that you, as the banking expert, need to convey to your clients, to your business clientele. I want you guys to take the next few minutes and just talk to the bankers out there about some of the things that you've seen that have devolved the relationship between banks and their customers and their clients, and then what they can do to really pivot and improve how they do it.
Sure. Well, I think one of the biggest things that we've seen is throughout Colorado Springs and the Southern Colorado markets, there are some wonderful bankers, and there's wonderful banks who are so passionate about these communities that they serve and so passionate about the business owners. And we see a lot of really friendly bankers who truly get to know their clients, who are very responsive. When there's a need, they're on top of it. They're happy to help you. I think where we start to see a disconnect with these types of conversations that we've been talking about, cash flow and risk, where technology fits in some of these things, is there's often a disconnect within the bank that bankers think oftentimes in terms of product. You know, they have their set of products that they have to offer. That's their toolkit, if you will. And I think where there's an opportunity for both sides to come together more effectively at the table is to really help the bankers in our communities and the banks translate what those products that they're offering actually do and the needles that those move inside of these businesses. Because I think often it's easy to underestimate how powerful and meaningful some of these tools are. And so it's really moving away from this product-oriented conversation. You check the box relax, you have the conversation, then you check in next quarter, call me if you need anything, and truly getting to know your clients on an operational level so you can be that strategic partner. So you know, hey, my client, their balance sheet looks great, but they have a mid-month cash crunch. How can we really solve for that? And that transforms a relationship far beyond, oh, my banker is really friendly, they're there when I need something, to my bank and my banker is truly an indispensable thought leader and strategic partner for my business. And that's what we want to see.
I love the way you put it in the beginning of this interview as an operational partner, because I've never looked at my bank that way. It's been a place to hold money and make sure people are paid.
Right.
Okay. So I fully appreciate. So continue to unpack, Jared, some of the tools that in this engagement that you all would have with, a community bank or a larger banking institution.
Yeah.
What this conversation looks like and how it can help them evolve their banking practices and fundamentals towards their clients and businesses.
Yeah, I think the big thing is with banks, it doesn't matter if you're big or small banks, if you're a large or regional bank or you're a small community bank. Like Becky said, there are fantastic bankers out there, good people that care about their clients.
No doubt.
I've worked with a lot of them over the years on the lending side and the credit side. These individuals are way smarter than I am when it comes to that world, understanding how to read tax returns, how to structure a deal, put a whole package together and present it to loan portfolio, et cetera, et cetera. But what we have noticed is the big miss on that end is a lot of banks will lead with credit. They'll lead with lending. You got a lot of great lenders that are really good at what they do. But what happens if the bank either comes too overloaded in the pipeline? They tend to kind of stop the bleeding, saying, hey, let's stop putting loan applications in until we get caught up.
Yeah.
Right. Or there's uncertainties with the market. Right. So if you are a lender, you're out having a conversation with a business, maybe rates are up. Maybe there's uncertainty in the market. What do business owners do? They want to protect their business. So they're going to naturally just pull back and say,
contracting.
you know what? Let's wait.
Yeah.
And to all the lenders out there, how many times have we heard, hey, give me a call in about 6 months, right? That's a very normal thing for a business owner to do, saying, I'm uncomfortable doing anything right now.
Yeah.
Call me in 6 months. You're an awesome lender. At that time, what do? Right? Goals don't go away. You want to continue driving business and bringing clients into the bank. If you're a small community bank, your main goal is deposits. You want deposits because you want growth. You want a bigger emphasis and focus in on the market. So you are at having, totally lost my train of thought. I got really passionate. Lost my train of thought. Well, I think where the stop point is as a lender, when you're leading with lending, right? And those opportunities stop, where do you go from there?
Yep.
That's where we come into play. Is we have these conversations with banks, have these conversations with their sales professionals, and teach them how to have these other types of conversations. Maybe you want to start leading on the depository side, because I guarantee you, from our years of experience, when you're having a conversation with a business client from payables, receivables, cash flow, fraud protection, et cetera, expansion, that conversation, credit needs are eventually going to come up in that conversation if it's structured correctly. So if you're a banker, maybe you want to lead from the depository side of things and then gain a credit side on the back end.
Yep.
Or keep doing what you're doing because you're fantastic at lending. That's what you're good at. But let's give you a little more ammunition when things get tough and credit stops moving to say, hey, let's have a conversation about deposits. Let's have a conversation about cash flow. Do you have a pinch in a month, right? That's where we come into play to help teach the banks and bankers to be able to have those proactive conversations with those clients.
And so we fit in a couple of different ways with banks that are experiencing these challenges. I've yet to meet any bank, large or small, that says, no, we do not want to grow deposits, or no, we do not want to put more of our valuable cash management and treasury management services into the hands of our business clients. Of course, they want to grow in that way. There is often just a gap between recognizing that to grow and reinvest in the community, you need to be having these conversations. I often hear, we've got to be deposit forward. We've got to focus on cash management topics. But the ability to have a conversation around the topic is very, very different from handing you a sheet of paper that outlines all of our services and asking you, Dirk, what would be helpful in your business without ever really understanding what they're solving for in the first place. And so, we can come in from a couple different sides. We can come and work on upskilling internal employees, whether that's the front line, getting them just this much knowledge to initiate a conversation with a business owner while someone is in with a deposit or cashing a check, or whether that's bankers who, to Jared's point, have traditionally been lending focused and really want to round out their ability to have these conversations. We start in a very structured framework to build up these muscles, build up the confidence to have these conversations and know how to guide that client throughout the implementation process. And I'm always hearing from financial institutions that we want our clients to be educated on fraud. We want to talk to our clients about how their payables as a strategy, how they're paying all their vendors can impact their business, how to think about it in a different way. And so we also can work with financial institutions to put on those client engagement opportunities to where business owners are leaving with really practical knowledge that they can take back and implement inside their business to make a difference. And then the banker has a little bit more direction and more value you can give directly to that business client.
I appreciate that in particular because, I get messages from my bank, great bank, but I seldom read them about fraud, about certain protections or programs that they have because it comes across as a sales pitch, right? We're seeding the water with a little bait and we want you to bite on these things so that we could ramp up our fees.
Sure.
Okay. That's kind of the cynical side of being a business owner in the relationship with your bank, right? It's all about the fees, right? So dispel that real quick and what banks really should be doing.
Absolutely. And I think your experience is very real and very common that we all know how it feels. As soon as we feel like someone is selling to us, that guard goes up. We want to take a step back. Hey, I don't want to buy what you're selling, even if it may actually help your business. And so I think for me, that comes to having an understanding that what you're doing as a banker and as a bank is not just selling a certain number of widgets. What you're doing is profoundly affecting how businesses run. And when we can have that holistic conversation about friction that is inside your business, about cash flow timing, about risk exposure, that builds up that business. It builds up our entire community. And so I think just bridging that disconnect of, the thing that you are offering inside your bank with what the real conversation is. And again, when we bring both sides to the table, to know the questions to ask and the conversations to be having, our communities truly are so much stronger.
This is a great service, ladies and gentlemen. Upward Treasury Partners, upwardtreasury.com is the URL. If folks want to consult with you as a business or as a bank.
Correct.
Right? How do they do it?
Check us out on our website. There's an option to get in touch directly with us. We'd be glad to take a meeting, learn more, whether you're a business or a bank, about what you're looking to accomplish. And we can set some goals and kind of a trail map to get you where you want to be.
All right. Jared Schmidt and Becky Limoge, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Really appreciate you. And thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you watching the Business Digest radio program or listening to us on Spotify, iHeart, or Apple Podcast. Just look up Business Digest Radio. Next week, we'll have Sally Clark, State Director of the United States Department of Agriculture, sitting with us here in this studio, telling us what's going on with a number of grants. See you next week.
You've been listening to Business Digest Radio, Colorado's source for business, workforce, and economic development news. Find us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and at socodigest.com. To be featured on the show, email info@coloradomediagroup.com.